Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Shri Gauranga.
Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga.
Son of
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Omiganatamarandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshunmilitamida Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Madhavistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swarupa Kadamayam Dadate Swapadantikam. Okay, today we're going to speak about Guru Tattva and initiations. So today we're going to start with the bigger picture, and then we will get into the details later. I anticipate that covering this entire subject matter is going to take 3 lectures, maybe 4. And yeah, it'll take quite some time because, of course, it's a very broad subject and there's a lot of recent history that needs to be discussed and dealt with, which has confused the entire subject tremendously. I'm not used to speaking without translation with you guys, so it's quite unusual for me. Okay. So we're going to first consider what is Krishna consciousness. And devotees, they come to Krishna consciousness for many, many different reasons from all different avenues. And perhaps some because it looks attractive, singing and dancing, or they see the Harinam party and it's very amazing, mystical, out of this world, or they come to the temples, and the temples, depending on where you are, can be very beautiful and amazing and open up an entire culture or subculture to you that you didn't realize existed. And so depending on the avenue that they come from, and also what they learn along the way, can make a huge difference in terms of what their understanding of Krishna consciousness is and what it's all about. Of course, the point, the purpose of the whole thing, everything that we're doing, is to create a path back to Godhead, to the spiritual world for all the members of the society. So we're going from being an eternally conditioned soul to what? Not just heaven, which is what most Christians, the idea of emancipation means, not just heaven, and not just even the spiritual world, but the very highest experience of eternal life that exists. So this is quite an amazing thing, given that the background that most of us come from, being born into modern atheistic materialistic life, following the ways of a demonic culture, to raise ourselves up to the pinnacle of existence in an eternal personal relationship with the Supreme Lord. So that's what the idea is. That's what we want to accomplish. But there's a lot of distractions along the way, not only in material life, but also in Krishna consciousness. Everybody gets distracted. Let's say there's the possibility of being distracted in so many ways. And unless one actually first understands what that goal is and then endeavors to keep themselves fixed on that goal, it's easy to get distracted. So what we're going to discuss in these next several lectures is about the entire process of how we will achieve that transcendental destination without getting distracted. Now, ISKCON, of course, is presently in the entire world the external face or the organization that is put together by the founder, Srila Prabhupada, for the purpose of disseminating spiritual knowledge as far as possible and for bringing people into the fold so that they can begin and hopefully complete their spiritual journey. So when Srila Prabhupada was with us, ISKCON was quite centered, focused. There was only one leader. And we had very few books. Of course, books were coming in rapid succession, but very few devotees, let's say, depending on when they joined, even if they joined very early on in the 10 years that Srila Prabhupada was with us, it could be difficult to have read everything that he had produced in that time. For myself, I was doing a systematic reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I began before I moved into the temple. And I'm remembering that it took me 4 years to get to the sixth canto, and then another probably 3 or 4 years to get through the ninth canto. So if I'm typical of that, then the point is that we learn gradually the whole understanding what is Krishna consciousness, what are we doing, and along the way, depending upon if we are situated in a temple, that is living in a temple or not, which very few devotees are now. In the early days, everyone, to be a devotee, to be considered a devotee, you had to live in a temple. But of course, subsequently, after everybody grows up and gets married as a family, then we all live outside the temples. And so then our access to morning sadhana and the reading regular classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita are not as frequent as they were. Anyway, the point is that it can be a long process and take years to go through. And so subsequent to Srila Prabhupada's departure from this world, ISKCON has gone through many great difficulties. And again, depending upon how somebody contacts the society and how they join and how they take initiation, it can be very extremely daunting situation. Some devotees, we'll get into the history of ISKCON's guru conventions in a later time. I'm not going to go into that in detail today, but just enough to say that in many ways, ISKCON has been separated from a unified society into different personality cults based on the various gurus. And I say that, of course, with a lot of experience, and you probably also have that understanding or understand that as well. So then the goal becomes further, let's say, diffused or confused about keeping track on going back to Godhead and the path to get there. And that, of course, is going to depend a lot on how the particular gurus are instructing their disciples. And what I've come to learn over my years of preaching through ISKCON is that the junior devotees, that is, those who are not disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they have a tendency to take what their guru is saying as all in all, even to the point of perhaps minimizing Srila Prabhupada. And if their guru didn't say it, then it's not important. This, of course, in my opinion, is a great tragedy, because Srila Prabhupada is the acharya of ISKCON and the guru of everyone in terms of being the person who is instructing us in spiritual life by his books. So, the point, the reason I'm raising this is because there's many pitfalls along the way, along the path back home, back to Godhead. And the whole point of our practice, we have to remind ourselves regularly, is to focus on achieving that goal. We can achieve that goal in just this one life if we apply ourselves seriously. And but depending upon how regular or irregular we are in our practice, it can take not just several, but even many, many lifetimes. So, yeah, the point is that this is what it's all about, is spiritual emancipation to a permanent, eternal, personal relationship with the Supreme Lord. The very, very highest thing that's achievable for anyone in human life. Okay, so now how are we going to get there from here? And so the question is, what is the process of devotional service? And how do we pursue that? So this is given in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada's summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And there's one chapter, Principles for Executing Devotional Service. And basically, Srila Prabhupada is giving a list of things that we should do to develop and follow the process of devotional service. So I'll read from that list. The basic principles are as follows. 1, accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. 2, becoming initiated by the spiritual master and learning how to discharge the devotional service from him. 3, obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. 4, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master. 5, inquiring from the spiritual master how to advance in Krishna consciousness. 6, being prepared to give up anything material for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. That means, parentheses, that means that when we are engaged in the devotional service of Krishna, we must be prepared to give up something which we may not like to give up, and also we may have to accept something which we may not like to accept. Close parentheses. 7, residing in a place of pilgrimage like Dwarka or Vrindavan. 8, dealing with the material world only as far as necessary. 9, observing the fasting day on Ekadasi. And 10, worshiping sacred trees like the banyan tree. So Prabhupada writes, these 10 items are preliminary necessities for beginning the discharge of devotional service in regulative principles. In the beginning, if a neophyte devotee observes the above-mentioned 10 principles, he will surely quickly make good advancement in Krishna consciousness. So, the point is made by Rupa Goswami that one must take initiation from a spiritual master. And this is also, of course, mentioned in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So the Hari Bhakti Vilas is the written by Sanatana Goswami. It is the principles for Vaishnava. It's Vaishnava siddhanta, the principles of Vaishnava behavior and regulation. This is, of course, from Sanatana Goswami after he was instructed in these principles of devotional service by Lord Chaitanya. And then Nectar of Devotion, or the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is written by Rupa Goswami, who is likewise also instructed by Lord Chaitanya. So in both cases, we find the instruction that one should take initiation from a spiritual master. So then the question arises, okay, well, let's say, Prabhupada writes, accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. And of course, in Prabhupada's writing, practically every time that he mentions the word spiritual master, he uses the preface bona fide. So the bona fide spiritual master, bona fide, what does that mean? That means the authentic spiritual master. And this is an important preface for that word, because as we know, there are many, many people who present themselves as spiritual teachers of one sort or another. And there's many different spiritual paths, and a person, of course, anyone who is approaching spiritual life, they're at a great disadvantage in terms of understanding where to go to find out the truth. Who is the best one? Why? Because as a neophyte in spiritual life, they have no criteria with which to judge. And so we see that there's many different spiritual movements, many different spiritual leaders, and they all have followers who follow them for whatever reason. And the question is, what are they learning? And is it the highest thing? Well, the Vaishnava siddhanta is that we have the very highest siddhanta, the very highest truth, tattva, that can be found anywhere in this material world. Of course, everyone's going to say that. Yes, anybody that's not following us is going to hell. Christians say that particularly, but in other words, we have the only and right way, because what else are they going to say? If they're not going to say that, then no, well, we're just fudging it. We're faking it. There's might be something better somewhere else. Of course, they're not going to say that. You're not going to hear that. So they all present themselves as being authentic and the very best. But for one who has studied the Vedic scriptures, one can only come to the conclusion that the Vaishnava siddhanta, the Vaishnava teachings, are indeed the very highest. So, who is a guru? Who is qualified? What is a guru? And here I want to simplify this discussion by using the translation of the word. Guru is teacher, one who teaches about spiritual life. Now, in the modern day, this word guru has taken on all kinds of meanings, some from being very mystical to being even mundane, right? There's gurus for all kinds of mundane subjects, right? A guru for marketing, or a guru for, computer science or whatever, all kind of gurus. So we're not talking about that kind of guru. Of course, we're talking about a spiritual teacher. So that's the simple understanding. Then the question who may become a guru? And this is given by Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that anyone who knows the science of Krishna may become a guru. So that's even a Kanishta Adhikari. So there's different, as we know, different levels of understanding of Krishna consciousness, referred to as Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikari. Adhikar means what is their realization. So Kanishta, beginning realization, Madhyama, middle realization, and then Uttama, the topmost realization, or Mahabhagavat. So Kanishta is one who has begun to develop faith, but is not firm in their faith. Neither do they have a very firm grasp or understanding of Shastra, And so their faith, because their faith is weak, they may fall down from the path. They may become distracted and fall away. As one progresses, one's faith becomes very firm and they're fixed up so that even if there's challenges, even if there's a temporary fall down, there will not be a permanent fall down, and they will continue throughout their lives. However, their understanding of Shastra is not very great, and therefore they're unable to understand themselves completely what to do or what not to do, and also unable to convince others about the truth of what they're doing. And then the Uttama Adhikari is one who has actually the highest realization and who is capable of convincing others of Krishna consciousness. So I'm looking in my notes here for one definition of Uttama. Now you'll find that this word Uttama Adhikari is defined variously in different places. And so here the simplest one: if one is expert in Vedic literature and has full faith in the Supreme Lord, then he is an Uttama Adhikari, a first-class Vaishnava. So this is the simple, most basic definition that you might find in Prabhupada's writings. In other places, Uttama Adhikari is taken to be one who has fully self-realized and who is seen the Lord face to face, and so on. Let's say, okay, continuing with this definition. Okay, I'll read the whole thing. If one is an expert in Vedic literature and has full faith in the Supreme Lord, then he is an Uttama Adhikari, a first-class Vaishnava, a topmost Vaishnava who can deliver the whole world and turn everyone to Krishna consciousness. So Uttama Adhikari is sometimes also referred to as the Mahabhagavat. Okay, Maha, great, Bhagavat, devotee, is the great devotee. With great love and affection, the Mahabhagavat observes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, devotional service, and the devotee. He observes nothing beyond Krishna consciousness, and Krishna's devotees. In other words, that's all the Mahabhagavat sees in the world. He sees everything in relationship to Krishna at all times, and even the so-called karmis, that they are somehow engaged in devotional service of the Lord. So from that position, this very, very topmost position, it's said very difficult to preach because one has to discriminate in their teaching between who is fit, who is an unfit candidate, and so on. And therefore, this is a position of a Madhyama Adhikari, the middle class devotee, and the Uttama will then come down to the Madhyama platform for the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness and giving shelter to the fallen conditioned souls. So now, if one is going to look for a guru, who does he want? Who do you want for a guru? Well, you want the best, the most qualified, the Uttama Adhikar. Again, however, the challenge is that the neophyte, or the beginner in Krishna consciousness, has no way to distinguish or understand who is who. And they can easily be bewildered in that process. And typically what happens, we'll see that the followers of some personality, they will advertise their guru as the Uttama Adhikari, or the topmost, or a self-realized person, and so on. And on that basis, other neophytes accept that person as indeed having such qualities. So this is, it's a challenge for the neophyte to be able to know what to do. So what is to be done? Well, the first thing is, before just jumping into initiation, is for the one who is beginning their spiritual life to get some understanding of what it is they're actually trying to do. And of course, this doesn't happen immediately. It takes some time. But if one is diligent and applies themselves, in rather, let's say, in several years, they can get some understanding of what they're attempting to pursue and what the whole idea is. Now, in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami is instructing both the disciple, the potential disciple, and the potential guru that they should also be very cautious in accepting each other. That if the guru accepts unqualified disciples, he will have to suffer as a result. And of course, if the neophyte accepts an unqualified guru, most definitely he will suffer and be misdirected in his spiritual life for who knows how long. So therefore, Sanatana Goswami says that the potential guru and disciple, they should live together for a minimum of 1 year, and better 3 years. Because why? Because over the course of 1 year, one can observe the behavior, or each of them can observe the behavior of the other, get to know each other, and then make a judgment about whether I want to accept this other person in terms of this particular guru-disciple relationship. So it would be wonderful if that were the case. When Srila Prabhupada was with us, of course, there was only one guru for all of ISKCON, and all of us could understand from reading what Srila Prabhupada had written that he was, in fact, the Uttama Adhikari. He was the real thing. Before I met Srila Prabhupada through his books, I had been looking at other spiritual groups, and because I was looking around, I was trying to figure out what's going on in this world. And however, I would always come to a dead end with them because I would come to the place where they could not answer my questions. So, okay, you can't answer my question, then I'll go look somewhere else. So after reading Prabhupada's books and then coming to the temple, finally, all of my questions were answered. And on the basis of that, on the basis of my intelligence, I could understand that Krishna consciousness is a highest thing. And so that's where I was going to apply myself to. So, yeah, so the potential disciple and guru, they should stay together for 1 year. Now, we don't see this practically anywhere in the world today, unfortunately. One thing, because many of the gurus do not have their own place, and they're always moving around. And then they follow the system that was established by Srila Prabhupada, that Prabhupada would depend on the local authority, the temple president, to judge the fitness of the candidate, whether in fact they are qualified for initiation or not. Prabhupada would not initiate anybody right off the bat, but he required them to be following the principles for a minimum of 6 months and attending lectures at the temple, reading his books and so on, and chanting Hare Krishna mantra. So the local temple president would get to know such a person, and then he could recommend them to Srila Prabhupada for initiation. So that was the process that was followed when Srila Prabhupada was with us, and this is basically the process that has been followed ever since then, depending on a local authority who knows the individual to make that decision, to judge the fitness of the candidate. Srila Prabhupada did not refuse anyone who was recommended to him. So he was depending very heavily on the ability of his leaders to be able to judge the fitness of these candidates. So, but subsequently, this whole system has gone through different permutations. ISKCON's process of initiation has gone through different permutations to where there's other third parties involved. That is, before one can be recommended for initiation, one has to take the ISKCON disciple course, pass that, and then upon passing that, can be recommended to a particular guru. Well, there's not even a third party, a fourth party involved in there, because in many of the yatras, there's one person only who administers this test. And so they have a lot of power. I know devotees who knew the philosophy well, who took the test and passed the test. One of them sent me his test, and it was certainly adequate. But because he was politically outspoken, he was not given a passing grade. So these kinds of things are going on now, which are against the Vaishnava siddhanta. We'll speak more about ISKCON's apasiddhanta practices in another lecture. So let's see, who's qualified and who's not. The disciple, by living with the guru for 1 year, if he's able to do that, he can see if the guru is in fact a sense gratifier, a lazy person, or otherwise unqualified, can hear from him, and then by comparing what he says with others, can then make some sort of judgment whether they want to make a commitment, a firm commitment to this person to accept them as their eternal spiritual master, to deliver them from the clutches of birth and death. Likewise, the spiritual master can observe the character and behavior of the potential disciple, see if they are qualified or not, and then make their determination whether they want to accept them or not. So in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami is very clear the symptoms of both a qualified spiritual master and a qualified disciple. And it would be good for every devotee to read the Hari Bhakti. Oh, good. Yeah. So this discussion of spiritual master and disciple is in the very first Vilas. Vilas means like chapter. So that's right in the beginning. And so everyone who is interested in pursuing initiation should avail themselves of this book and understand the criteria by which to judge. Then the next challenge comes from not being in the physical presence of each other, how this is going to be determined, who is a fit candidate, fit for either side of the relationship. And it's full of pitfalls also, because we found over the 50 years plus of almost 50 years of since Srila Prabhupada has been with us, that those who are presenting themselves as qualified gurus, in fact, later on from the requirements of spiritual life, that is, they become attracted to mundane activities or relationships. And so this, of course, creates disaster in the lives of the devotees. So this was, of course, the case, maybe the case more in the earlier years, in the 80s, when any of the gurus in ISKCON were young men, full of passion, and consequently unable to control those passions. Now we have, after 50 years on, we have men in their senior years, well beyond the age of 50, after which time the passions of life decrease and can be subdued. And so it's much more likely both that they will not fall down from the spiritual life, and also that they have a better understanding of their role as guru and their command of the siddhanta in order to be able to. So then Prabhupada again, I don't think I covered it yet, but Prabhupada again writes about the bona fide guru. What is bona fide? Now, Prabhupada is very explicit in explaining the qualifications of the bona fide guru. And there's three. that I've been able to find. One is he comes in disciplic succession directly from Krishna. That is, the disciplic succession can be traced from Krishna to present. The second one is that he has studied the scriptures and is able to convince others of their validity. And the third one, perhaps the most challenging in this regard, is that by his practice of Krishna consciousness, he has been able to contact the supersoul and is in direct contact with the supersoul, because the bona fide spiritual master is considered to be the external medium to the supersoul. The neophyte devotee cannot hear the supersoul directly or understand what to do. But the bona fide guru, having developed that connection, can then speak on behalf of the supersoul to give guidance to the disciple. So this, of course, is a difficult thing for the disciple to judge whether that's the case or not. For Srila Prabhupada, one interesting anecdote in this regard, one time he was speaking with a college professor, and he told the college professor that Krishna tells me what to say. And one of Prabhupada's leaders was with him and tried to correct Prabhupada, saying, what Prabhupada means is that Krishna gives him the intelligence what to say. And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna tells me what to say. In the same way that Prabhupada also said that I didn't write these books, Krishna has written these books. So Prabhupada was hearing the Lord in the heart and being able to speak on his behalf, the external manifestation of the supersoul. There's one other anecdote that I often also give in this regard. The president of the Mumbai temple, Giriraj Swami. And Giriraj Maharaj, before when he was just coming to Krishna consciousness, he met the devotees. He had a car, and Prabhupada had come to Boston, and because he had a car, the devotees asked him to drive to Prabhupada's lecture that night. So he did. And then after the lecture, Prabhupada took questions, and Giriraj asked a question, which I don't remember, but the question is not so important as the answer. So Giriraj, trying to enter into spiritual life, and of course, having come into contact with many of the Mayavad type of spiritual groups, he had a sticker on his bathroom mirror that he would see every morning to remind him that the sticker said, "You are God." So, yes, I'm God, but I've forgotten. Anyway, so back to the question of Giriraj. Again, I'll have to find out what that question was so I can repeat it. But Prabhupada's answer to his question was, that depends on whether you want to try to become God or whether you want to serve God. And immediately Giriraj said, Giriraj said, I knew immediately that this was my spiritual master, because he's directly speaking to this fact of my life that I'm dealing with now. So yes, so the bona fide spiritual master is in contact with the supersoul and can give guidance from the supersoul. Now, this is a subjective criteria for anyone who would take the position of guru, particularly as a bona fide guru. And I don't know that let's say I'm not familiar with what my God brothers are telling their disciples or followers, so I can't really speak to that. But based on the number of fall downs, we can safely conclude that they're not at that level. They have not achieved that level. And so they were, trying to fulfill a position that's needed in the society of ISKCON without being fully qualified. This is one of the problems with having an institution, which all of you know that I rail against in my writing. Spiritual life is not meant to be institutionalized. It can wreak havoc for everyone involved. Institutions are created by the demons for the purpose of controlling many people. And but they traditionally have no role. Actually, they have no role. They don't exist in Vedic culture. If we read the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, we never read about any institution where authority is placed in a particular seat or position, like president, but rather in Vedic culture, in spiritual culture, authority is given to a person of ability. Sukadeva Goswami was elected to be the speaker to Maharaj Parikshit because he was the most qualified personality present at that time. Same thing with Sutta Goswami with the sages at Naimisharanya. So qualification is what matters, not position. But in institutionalized ISKCON, the position of guru is been made into a position which some can fulfill as long as they pass the are acknowledged by the GBC body, which again is apasiddhanta. So spiritual life is no trifling matter. It's very serious if one wants to achieve the goal in present lifetime. Therefore, the student must educate themselves as to what they're getting into, and the guru should make a proper evaluation of himself to understand if he is in fact fit. Of course, one other criteria from Bhakti Rasa, from the Nectar of Instruction, Bhakti Rasa, Vachavegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapashta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Yo Vishat Hita Dira, Sarvam Apimam, Pritivan Sasishyate. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. That's another very subjective criteria for which anyone who is thinking of taking on this service to others should make and see if, in fact, he is qualified by these criteria. And if one is not, one should not take that step to begin initiating. So, serious business requiring qualification of both the disciple and the guru, and each of them should make sure if they're fit and if the other one is fit in order to proceed with the relationship for today. And any questions?
Guruji, thank you very much for your raising this topic. The topic is essential and it is very interesting. So I have maybe two similar questions, or the same question about both sides of initiation. I mean, disciple and a master. Regarding disciple, if they are not qualified to understand, I mean, newcomers, new devotees, they are not qualified to discriminate and to understand who is who. So what can be a criteria for them besides the opinion of other devotees? And on the other side, for the person, for the devotee who wants or who is supposed to begin initiating devotees to become a guru, what is the criteria for himself to understand if he can bear this, burden, all of this? Because I think that those devotees who became gurus in previous times and then fall down, they when they did it, I mean, when they became gurus, they might not think it is too much for me and I cannot bear it. They thought they could. So what are the criteria for disciple, for the
Yeah.
newcomer devotees and for the gurus?
Okay. So for the neophyte, okay, we're going to take a journey, right? Where do we start? We start from where we're at. Okay. So the only criteria for a neophyte to begin that journey is having some faith. And that faith is generally developed by being in association of other devotees, because the neophyte gets faith from their faith. We obtain faith in Krishna because Prabhupada had faith in Krishna. We could understand, see he was devoted, and therefore his devotion gave us faith. Not only his devotion, but also his erudite scholarship. Speaking factually in terms of subject matter that most people only pretend about. For myself, when I was going through all those different spiritual groups, trying to find out some truth, there's a lot of, let's say, everything was put into perspective when I began reading Srila Prabhupada's books, because immediately I could understand that Prabhupada understood what he was speaking about because he spoke with such great authority. And in comparison, all the others looked like children who were pretending that they were spiritual. Because for materialists, they don't know what spiritual is. So all they can do is make up some idea. You know, oh yeah, that sounds spiritual. The sound of one hand clapping. Oh yeah, that's spiritual. Things like that. And then the second part was about?
The second part was about the criteria for the devotee who is supposed to become a guru.
So I took the ISKCON Guru course. I wanted to find out what they were teaching there, because my opinion was that if anybody's qualified to become a guru, why do they need a course to tell them?
Exactly.
Right? So it was interesting that in this course, they never once mentioned the words Vachravegam, Manasakrodavegam, which I was quite surprised about, right? And what the course was about basically was explaining, trying to help them understand what they were getting into, as you explained. How are they going to deal with all these disciples? And particularly in the modern setting where, depending on how many, potential devotees are petition you for initiation, you can wind up with thousands of disciples, so much that it becomes an extremely overwhelming task. You can't even begin to communicate with within most of them. But to speak of Jayapataka, he has 50, 60,000. So
they say he was told by Prabhupada to do that.
No, he told me personally that Prabhupada told him he should take many disciples. Why Prabhupada told him that? Or, many, you don't, 1,000 is many, 50,000. So what I say there is, you're entering into this relationship with a guru. It's a relationship, and you have to know what you want to get out of it. If you don't get married with somebody without understanding if they're going to be able to fulfill your expectations in that marriage. So the same thing, you're entering into a relationship with a guru. Do you hope to have his association personally once a year, maybe, or maybe get a letter even from him once a year? Now, how can anyone who has 2,000 disciples answer one letter from each of them every year? Right? So the math is not that difficult. 365 days in a year. In 3 years, he could write, doing one letter a day, he could write to 1,000 approximately in 3 years. Okay, so that means if he's going to write to every one of them once a year, that means he has to write 3 letters a day. 2,000 means 6 letters a day. That means practically that's half a day if you're going to think seriously about what you're saying. So traditionally in Vedic culture, there would not be this, gurus would not take, so they would not have so many disciples. Many, of course, it's a modern day and we have modern communications where everybody all around the world can hear from what any one person is saying. And then based on that, they say, oh yeah, well, I'd like to have initiation from that person. Okay, well then maybe the guru should put a limit on it for his own sanity as well as others. And I've talked to some of my godbrothers who they find themselves overwhelmed and they can't deal with it. And it becomes a great burden. So it's not a service it's a disservice to themselves and turns out not to be a very great service to others. So again, this might be one of the criteria that the prospective disciple wants to find out. Gurudev, how many disciples do you have and how many, do you have a limit? So one should understand what they need from the relationship before they enter into it. And most devotees, they don't stop to think about this. I was speaking with one devotee who took initiation from one of my godbrothers, and she was very disappointed in her guru, that she could not have any, he doesn't reply to my letters and so on. And so I was asking her these questions. I said, well, why did you take initiation? Did you have any criteria, what you needed from the relationship? And she said, no, I was just caught up in all the euphoria when he would come around. And it's, yeah, it's heady. It's, it's exciting. It's nice, but it's a cult. And so, again, people get married for all the wrong reasons and they take initiation also for all the wrong reasons. So it's serious business and we should approach it in a serious way.
Is it that the devotees who decide to become a guru, to become gurus, I don't want to use this word imitate, but anyway, if Srila Prabhupada was the only guru of ISKCON and he did his guruship in such a way, so then others, the next generations, they look at Prabhupada and say, okay, and we will do the same. But the situation is different and their qualification is different.
Yeah. So that's exactly what they try to do. They tried to walk in Srila Prabhupada's shoes, as we say.
Not steps,
and,
not in Prabhupada's steps,
not
but
in his footsteps, but in his shoes. And it didn't work. Yes, of course, right? Having people offer you obeisances and swooning whenever you come around is heady stuff. Okay, I experienced that, even though, right, just because my situation as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, many devotees were acting like that, and I realized immediately that this is not meant for me, because it's not that, Don Roos, right, my given name, shows up and so they're all going crazy like this. No, no, because I have a relationship with the Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, and so all this honor is meant for him, not for me. And I understood very quickly, if I don't pass this honor to him and I keep it for myself, very quickly it'll go to my head and it'll become the cause of my fall down. This is Hansaduta Prabhu redated like that. When he had to go to court for some, let's say, irresponsible behavior, and he told the judge, this is making me crazy. He said, they worship me. So he didn't know how to deal with it, and it went to his head, and he started doing all kinds of irrational things. He thought he could do anything, and yeah, because you're the guru, and you can do anything in terms as far as your disciples are concerned. They're not going to question you, unfortunately, but maybe they should. So this is a problem of both of immaturity on the part of both the guru and the disciples.
It came now to the point when all the culture of initiation or the relationship between gurus and disciples in ISKCON was constructed on the base, on the foundation of immaturity.
Yeah.
And now it is going on by itself because now it is a tradition. But from the very beginning, it was constructed on the immaturity because all the gurus were too young. No spiritual experience, no life experience.
No purity.
No
But
purity.
to speak of experience. Yeah,
and now they are going on.
Yeah, so this is unfortunately, this is a problem with institutional religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You got an institution, so there's a need for gurus. We need more gurus. Come on, become a guru. Well, they're not saying we want qualified people. Are there any qualified people out there? Maybe they do. I don't know. I'm totally out of touch with them, but that would be, of course, best.
As it was done in this way in the temples on the lower level, yes, of society. For example, we need more brahmanas to worship deities. So gurus initiated. Secondly, just pujaris, just to make puja. But people began worshipping them because they were brahmanas now, although they were not. They were initiated just for worshipping.
Yeah, and all of you can tell me stories about how the cheerleading squad for the various gurus, how they tried to, recruit more disciples for their guru. My guru is the best. Of course, they'll say that. They're enthusiastic about their spiritual master. Nothing wrong with that. But it becomes a cheerleading squad. So these things are going on. So again, this is why I'm saying, it's serious business, and anyone who's considering to take initiation, they should understand what they're doing.
Guruji, those who are going to take initiation are not qualified. They are like children. What can they understand? So as much as they can understand, the problem may be solved only through the gurus, through the senior devotees who should evaluate their own purity first of all.
Okay, well, no, there's two sources for knowledge. There's Shastra, so Prabhupada's books are there, and the devotee, the neophyte, should study them, and particularly with that in mind. When it comes to the point where they're thinking about getting initiated, Prabhupada says one should not take a spiritual master as a fad, like you get a fancy dog or something like that. So, oh yeah, I've got a guru too, right? No, this is the wrong reason.
So-called culture.
Yeah, and many devotees do that. Many devotees do that, in ISKCON. I forget, there was something else I was going to say about that. But what were you saying? Say it again. Do you remember what you said? Your comment?
I said that for me, I see the solve of this problem. The problem may be solved by the senior devotees who must evaluate their purity.
Yeah. So the other thing, so Shastra, they should read, and then they should take counsel from other senior devotees, not some who they are not thinking to take initiation from, but others who may be respected, if you can access them, which is another difficulty. How do you access, so Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. So, okay, we have sadhus, in other words, senior devotees. The question for some is, okay, how do you access them? Well, now there's Facebook, right? And practically you can find anybody there, except I've been locked out of my Facebook account for 6 months or more. I'm still trying to get on, but I'm finding it very difficult.
Facebook is prohibited in Russia.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Really?
Banned, yes.
How? That's interesting. What about What's Up?
WhatsApp is not banned yet.
Well, it's run by
Not
the
yet.
same company. It's owned by the
Yes,
same company.
yes.
So,
And in Instagram,
right.
which many Russians now they call Instagram. Instead of Instagram, they write "нельзя gram." You mean prohibited gram.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going on too long. Depends on how much time it'll take to answer it.
You have said in the beginning of your lecture, in the introduction, you have said that anyone can achieve this goal, being a human,
In one lifetime. Yeah.
in one lifetime. So
No, I said it's possible.
it's possible. So is it really possible to anyone? This is my question.
For anyone? Yeah, if they are serious, determined, because Krishna is in the heart. He knows the desires of that person. He knows if they're serious or if they're cheating. If they're cheating, he sends them to a cheating guru. Krishna's answering, he's fulfilling all of our desires. So if they're serious, he'll direct them in such a way so that they can be achieved. But again, it's a extremely lofty goal. It's not something to be achieved without diligence and, a lifetime of dedication and pursuit.
I also wanted to know if people, we know that we are all conditioned by our karma, and can really everyone have such a desire? Is it possible to a person with a hard karma to just have a desire?
Everyone's not going to have that desire. Of course not. There's so many degraded people that they don't have such a desire. I don't know if you saw anything of the opening ceremony from the Paris Olympics. It was disgusting.
Disgusting.
Don't even look. It was just abysmally degraded. And those people, they have no desire. Those people, no. People like that. All the transes and, rainbow people, forget it. They're going to hell.
And they made a parody on Christian. It was abominable. Okay, so you mean everybody who has such a desire can fulfill it in this lifetime if they will be if they are serious about it, diligent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Guruji. It is infusing.
Okay, all right, we'll continue next time. So thank you very much for your association. And as always, please read every day.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.